I wanted to, we have sort of had a tradition of meeting with the news media before a session, and now we are a week before, or less than a week before, a special session that will begin on Tuesday. So I thought it would be in keeping with that tradition. This is a very important session. I know that we have all been preoccupied with the elections that have been going on, but now that they are over, then I think it's important that we get around in a very concentrated way to helping Southwest Georgia recover from the complete devastation almost resulting from Hurricane Michael. I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity to go down there since the hurricane, but I have been, and I can tell you it'll bring tears to your eyes to see all the houses that have been damaged and destroyed, and the damage to our agricultural sector of our economy is just is beyond belief almost. Some of the statistics that I've seen are just are incredible. Seminole County, for example, lost 100% of its pecan trees. Every pecan tree in the county is gone. And the real tragedy is that it's 10 years from when you put a pecan tree in the ground until you can harvest from it. And so generations of work have been set back, and so I think it's important that that we have this special session. I want to commend Governor Deal for making this a priority sooner rather than later, because we need to get help down there and get it quickly. And this is only going to be a beginning, but it's a beginning that I think needed to start now as opposed to waiting until the session. So we need to make that the number one issue in Georgia rather than trying to get folks elected to office. So that's what we're going to do starting Tuesday. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions. Caleb told me I had to open it up to about anything today. So yes, Elaine.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
I have a question. Originally, when you planned the special session, I read an estimate that you thought it would be $1 million. Has that changed, the estimate to take care of all this?
Well, you didn't read me saying it was going to be 1 million. Yeah, it was 100 million. It's going to be way more than that. I know the governor is going to issue the call at noon today. I have full expectation that the revenue estimate will be increased, and that will be only only a fraction of what we take up. It's way more. It's going to be, the total damage is going to be multiple billions. Obviously, it's more than any state could do. It's more than probably even our efforts with the federal government can do. But the federal government and us will partner on many of these programs. But it's going to be way north of 100 million.
In what ways will the money be utilized down there? What's it a lot?
Well, we still have a lot of debris removal to do, and a lot of the local governments have had to bear the expense of that, and there was just so much debris that, and these governments in that part of the state are to be kind, are very limited in their resources, and so we're going to assist them in probably some reimbursements as well as helping them finish debris removal. I think the initial focus of our efforts will be on repair to infrastructure and repairing state assets that have been damaged that will serve the people down there. I know we had, for example, in I think Early County, the State Forestry Commission building was heavily damaged, and that's obviously another segment of the agricultural economy that took a real hit, and so we've got to make sure that those assets get repaired, and so I think the emphasis is going to be on infrastructure at the beginning.
Mr. Speaker, it's understandable to call this session concerning the devastation from the storms, but while in session you have both bodies of chambers in session. Is there any other legislative agendas that's going to be on the floor that's left over from last year? Any other legislation from last year that you may take up while you have this opportunity?
Well, the almost exclusive focus will be on the Hurricane Michael losses. We obviously can't take up a wide range of issues during this short period of time. We're dealing with the General Assembly as it existed before the polls closed on Tuesday, as opposed to the new General Assembly, which will be sworn in January. But under our law, the governor has the prerogative on what to include in the call. I expect that he may have 2 or 3 additions to that, but I think it's almost exclusively going to be about the hurricane. We'll have a full session before we know it. We'll be back there for January 13th. Is that when we start? So that's not long, and we'll take up.
So when the governor makes the call, when he does that, we will see what is on there?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the session will be closed to just those items?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The jet fuel
Mhm.
tax break is expected to be, he's already mentioned that. Your thoughts on that, because that was kind of a contentious issue last time?
Well, under the law, the suspension of the jet fuel tax has to be taken up because it was the suspension was reinstated by executive order, which means that it must be reviewed at the next regular or special session. So the law requires that be on there. So that's how that will be on there. I look at that this way. I try to put all the contention aside. I mean, I'm not into the controversy that surrounded it back last session. But my view is that anytime we have that we do preferential tax treatment for any entity, then I think the burden is on that entity to make the case for why it is good why it's necessary, first of all, and why it's good for the overall economy in the state. To be candid with you, I haven't I haven't had that case made yet.
So you haven't heard from Delta or any of the other?
No, I've not heard from Delta.
They've been lobbying for this for a long time.
I'm sorry?
They've been lobbying this obviously for a long time, so you do know the issues very well. What do you think will ultimately happen on that?
I think it's going to have a tough road to hoe. I think I don't want to make predictions as to whether we will adopt it or not, or reinstate it. But I think it's going to face, and I have not talked to any of my colleagues on the Senate side, but I think in the House there's I think a lot of members are like me, that they want to see a case made, and so there's a fair amount of concern as to whether that has been made.
Going back to the Hurricane Michael, I imagine that the call will be somewhat broad to say we're going to do this and that. Are there other things beyond the $270 million that the governor's talked about, largely is to repair things that have been damaged, or the other things that you think that the legislature either will or should take up that to help that region beyond just repairing the roads or the forestry buildings or over time, that kind of stuff?
Well, as I said earlier, I view this as a beginning and not an ending for state assistance in that part of Georgia. Obviously, I know he did talk about the $270 million yesterday, and so that I'm assuming that that's probably about where the revenue estimate will end up, and that's what we'll have to work with. And so I think that we're going to continue this assistance in the budget, in the big budget, FY20 budget that we'll take up next session. And the other thing too is I think we have to, I know that we're aggressively pursuing all of the avenues of assistance from the federal government. I know the governor's office and others have been in close communication with the administration in Washington, and they have, at least at the beginning, have been very engaged, and I compliment them for that. And hopefully that will translate into some very significant federal help, and we're going to need our federal partners to step up, because this is the sheer magnitude of the losses is much more than Georgia can absorb, and I think it's more than any state, frankly, could absorb.
The elections, we haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
Since the election has occurred, your chamber lost a lot, or I should say the Republicans lost a lot of members in the legislature, or excuse me, seats in the House. And one of the things kind of obvious when we look at the number, or look at where this had occurred, rural Georgia continued and small town Georgia continued to go very strongly for Republicans. Suburban Atlanta, North Atlanta in particular, started going more for the Democrats. Is there a change in message or strategy that Republicans need to make to either win back or hold the line in kind of like suburban Atlanta and suburban Atlanta?
Well, I think that we obviously, I try to learn from all experiences. We're going to sit down and try to learn from this one. And I think that we need, as a party, to message in a more effective way the good things that we have done here in Georgia. I mean, we just last session cut the income tax, full funding for QBE, appropriating funds for school safety, adoption reform. I mean, so many good things that we accomplished, I think, in my view at least, and I have told y'all at the end of sessions when I was disappointed a few times with the result of a session, but I was not this year. I mean, it was a very positive session, and I think that we have to do a better job of communicating that. You know, we picked up, we were able to win back 3 seats that I was very pleased about, with the 2 seats over in the Athens-Clarke County area. Very happy with those 2. Very happy with Representative Mike Chokas winning down in southwest Georgia. But we lost some good members, and you're exactly right. If you look at a map, I mean, it was you could probably drive from one end of the losses to the other in good traffic in less than an hour. And so, you know, people have asked me a lot, well, what does this mean about, you know, the president? And I said, well, I think the president, I think Mike Chokas would tell you that President Trump helped bring him back to the Capitol. And then some of our members in suburban Georgia would probably say that he cost them their seats. I mean, so he's viewed differently in different parts of the state. And but, you know, our party was here before him. It will be here after him. And we need to learn to message our pro-job, pro-education reform, pro-public safety message in a more effective way.
Mr. Speaker, on the election, have you talked with Governor-elect Kemp concerning any meetings on throughout his transition on setting a 2019 legislative agenda? How is that progressing? I know it's just 2 days, but I know already starting to work. And where are you playing a role in that? And have you talked to Governor-elect Kemp about that?
We talked a couple of 3 times on Wednesday. We talked Wednesday night. We did not talk yesterday. I know he was meeting with Governor Deal most of the day yesterday, and we have talked, and I don't want to get into the details about his legislative agenda. I think they are beginning to give a lot of substantive thought to that. I called him Wednesday evening because in our earlier conversation Wednesday, since he had not claimed victory, once he did, I called to congratulate him and told him that he was much more kind than I would have been. I thought the election ended way before he called it, but I thought he showed great class in delaying his claim of victory, and I encouraged him because this is a big state, and state government's a big enterprise, and so, you know, he does have to get to work on getting his arms around state government, although I'm confident he will, because he's got experience and getting his people in place and developing an agenda. And so we can't wait on lawsuits, and we can't wait on people to continue to seek out publicity. I mean, we've got a state to run. We've got a part of the state that is hurting that we're going to start helping next week.
Any further comments on the challenge by the Abrams campaign?
I don't have any. I really hope that Representative Abrams will do the right thing and acknowledge that this is mathematically over. You know, I think she would be better served. You know, I understand that, you know, if she concedes that probably the flow of publicity and money ends, but that's kind of the way this thing works. And so I hope that she will, I really hope for the good of the state that she'll reevaluate her thinking as it appears to be now. I don't think that prolonging this with lawsuits and challenges and things of that sort is good for Georgia.
Going back to the hurricane relief, the $270 million from comments the governor's made will come from increased revenues and not from the state's rainy day fund. What effect do you foresee that having on the mid-year budget coming up in January? We also are looking into that and how much money can go for other things like that.
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is that we've had a good year. from a fiscal standpoint in Georgia. That's a testament, I think, to the leadership of Governor Deal and the policies that he's led on, that we've been pleased to work with him on, that have been good for jobs in Georgia and been good for economic growth. And it's because of that that we are able to do this with the additional revenue. And so I'm not expecting that it would have a significant effect on the mid-year budget. I think we'll be able to handle the needs that we need to address in that. And and I think that story needs to be told, that he, that we're doing well as a state, and so we don't have to touch the rainy day fund, that we can use the additional revenue. I mean, we've had a good year. You look at, I saw the percentages just a few days ago, were the numbers for October, and I mean, October was strong here in Georgia. Yeah.
It's the way I understand it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the money that you're going to be putting in during the special session is in lieu of expecting the money to be returned through the federal government, through emergency, whatever you call it. So you're really kind of like almost borrowing the money, or not borrowing the money, but fronting the money
Right.
to agencies, and the federal government will. So in the end, it won't really necessarily hurt the budget or cut into state finance.
Right.
For long term. Okay.
Just going back to President Trump for a minute, and I understand, not to quote you, but some candidates may feel the president was positive, some may feel it's a negative, not a quote, but understand what he said. Overall, for the state of Georgia, has the Trump administration been good to the state? Have they not trying to mirror some of the things that the state has done in transportation? I mean, how do you feel the Trump administration, not just federal government, the Trump administration has treated Georgia or been there when you need it?
Well, when you cut through all of the political clutter, I have been pleased with a lot of the initiatives of the Trump administration. For example, I've been privileged to be invited to the White House on 2 or 3 different occasions to meet on his infrastructure package. And I appreciate that his administration is looking to state and local governments for input on putting that together. I mean, that's what we've been wanting for years, is not a top-down, but a bottom-up approach. And so I think that as that has translated on the ground here, that we're seeing some very positive things. In one of the meetings on infrastructure, we devoted the better part of an afternoon talking about rural America. And those of you around the table know that I have a great passion in rural Georgia. We have created the Rural Development Council, and they have worked very, very hard over the last 2 years and have produced some good work and some good proposals. We passed some of them last year. I expect that they're going to have some more for us to take up next session, and that has gone so well that I'm going to ask the House to extend the life of that council this coming session, and because I think it's important to keep that going, and so I very much applaud this administration for its emphasis on rural areas here in the country. Just from a policy standpoint, I mean, people can, talk about all the other things, all they want, but there's some good things coming out of Washington, and don't get attention all as it should, but we got to do a better job of, I think, letting people know about those things. Y'all ready to have an apple pie or something? One thing I am going to do next week is it dawned on me that, and I'm dead serious about this. You know, we had a lot of money spent in this state on the election, and much of that money came from out of state, and a good bit of it came from some very, very well-heeled individuals, and that I didn't realize cared about Georgia as much as they apparently do. And I welcome their concern about the state. So I'm going to do a letter next week to Mr. Soros and see if he would like to help out some farmers in southwest Georgia that are hurting. And that will be another way that he can show his interest in Georgia.
So they can bypass the red tape and go straight to the fund and help, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, okay.
How many days do you anticipate it will be next week?
I predict we will be through by Thanksgiving. You know, I have every confidence that Chairman England and his committee will move expeditiously through the budget, and
Can't trust the Senate, though.
well, you know, that's the thing. I can't speak for them, and you know, we'll have to see. The House of Representatives plans to be through in probably 5 days tops, but you know, we have another chamber there, so.
Through Saturday.
Excuse me?
Tuesday to Saturday at this point is what you're thinking?
No, we're not going to meet on Saturday. We will go in Tuesday. Monday, of course, is Veterans Day, and I think it's important that we honor our veterans and not be at work that day. That's a very important holiday to me. But we'll go in Tuesday, and Tuesday morning, the House Republican majority, by the way, still a very strong majority, will have its leadership elections, and then we will come into session at 1:30 that afternoon to begin the special session. I'm not sure what the Senate's timetable will be, but a lot of people have holiday parades and other things coming up next weekend, and so you know, I think we're going to take off on Saturday, and we'll work Friday and come back in on Monday. Do you have anything for the good of the order?
No, I'm done. One thing I will mention about on the publicize this a little, if you go to the House of Representatives homepage, house.ga.gov, there's a new button at the bottom that talks about information on the hurricane and its damage. We've tried to put reliable data out there that media can use on timber damage, crop damage, damage to state resources, so that as the General Assembly takes up hurricane relief next week, you'll be able to see that data and report it from one spot. We try to make it easy because there's so much data out there about the hurricane.
I don't know how many of you have been down there since Michael hit. I know a few of you have, and truthfully, it was probably, I mean, well, not probably, it was the most devastating storm I had had the occasion to see the aftermath. I told many of the people in southwest Georgia. You know, I live in a part of the state where we don't name storms. And we're thankful for that. But just the, it really is hard to put in words how tragic it is. And you know, agriculture being the number one part of our economy, and you know, you fly over the fields, and you know, they were on, for cotton, for example, they were on track to have the best year in anybody's memory. So you pass over one field and the cotton is beautiful and it's thick and it's ready to be harvested. And then literally feet away in the next field, it's brown because it's been washed over with wind and mud and rain, and it's ruined. So they have lost those. And then, as I say, the pecan, devastation of the pecan orchards down there is really, really tough. And when you meet some of those farmers that have, you know, they're farming the way their parents farmed, and who farmed the way their parents farmed, and now to interrupt that for 10 years, that's a long time. But you know, they're tough and they're resilient, and I told them that, you know, we were going to do everything we could to help them bounce back, and we'll start that on Tuesday.